Hey everybody, it's Blue Fire Witch, and this is Kristen. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about recent events. It's come to my attention that there's been a lot of criticism going on within the Hellenismos community towards NeoHellenists. There's several statements from some practitioners of Hellenismos that really offended me. I believe that they're kind of fallacious and hypocritical. So I wanted to address some of the arguments that people have made recently about NeoHellenism and why they think it's not a valid path of Hellenism, because I just think that there's no point in trying to be so divisive. I really don't. I don't have a problem with the way that the people who celebrate Hellenismos practice. If that's the way that they believe is the right way to worship the gods of Greece, then that's great. You know, the more people that we have that recognize them, the better, I think, you know. As long as they're not harming people, I think it's great. So, I wanted to get into a little bit about what I believe so we can preface this. Now, a lot of people have different ideas of what Neo-Hellenism is, but this is what Neo-Hellenism is to me. I take the worship of the Greek gods and I modernize it. I'm not saying that I don't have any ancient beliefs. We actually have quite a few ancient beliefs. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that we no longer live in the ancient Greek society, and there's a lot of morals and values that they had that we would really disagree with. It doesn't sit well with us. For that reason, I believe it's necessary to bring the gods of Greece into a modern context. And I also believe that if the ancient Greeks had had a continuation of pagan practices, that they would practice more like I practice. And that's the way I practice the way I do. Now, I'm not saying that my way to practice is the only good way, but I definitely think it's the best way for me. So, I think that, you know, in that way it makes me a Neo-Hellenist. I want to say that I do not worship the ancient Greeks. I worship their gods. Therefore, I don't need the approval of the ancient Greeks to practice the way that I do. And furthermore, I don't need the approval of practitioners of Hellenismos either. However, there's a lot of hate being spewed that I've seen lately on specific message boards and other sources that I felt really compelled to clarify my position and clear up some facts about, you know, what Neo-Hellenism is and stuff like that. I mean, I consider all this petty bickering really, really sad. And some of the statements that I've seen are really very petty. I just wanted to say that, you know, I don't need the approval of the ancient Greeks for the way I practice, but we obviously use beliefs, values, and rituals and ideas as a starting off point for that. You know, you kind of have to. When you believe in the Greek gods, the way that you know, familiarize yourself with that is by familiarizing yourself with the myths and other readings from the ancient Greeks. But it doesn't mean that you have to take everything that they did and bring it into your own path. Now, it seems like a lot of people adhere to tradition for tradition's sake. I never really thought that was a good idea, and I'll tell you why. Especially in religion, the reason that you perform certain rituals and do things certain ways isn't necessarily because the gods want you to do it that way, but it's because it's the way that you best attune yourself to the nature, to the essence of deity. So, if a certain tradition doesn't make sense to you, then it doesn't really make much sense to practice that tradition, even if it's the, you know, old way or traditional way of doing it. If something doesn't make sense to you, don't do it. Because, I mean, it's fideism. And fideism, to me, seems to be against the entire essence of what the Greek gods and the Greek faith is about. The Greeks embraced logic, and the gods are also centered around this idea of thinking for yourself. So the idea of embracing fideism and tradition for tradition's sake and foregoing logic does not make sense to me. So if we think about religion in a logical way, we have to understand a few things about beliefs and values. And that is that society is the writer of our morals and social norms, not there's no real divine mandate for that. Now, yes, there were ancient Greek writers that wrote about different ways that you should do things. However, there's a lot of disagreements within them, and also a lot of you know, like different ways of doing things depending on which city, state, and Greece you look at as well. So it's hard to say which way is the absolute right way, and I don't really think that there is a right way. There's probably some wrong ways, you know. I don't think that, for example, harming other people is a really good way to celebrate the ancient religion. I don't think that, even though it was practiced in the old days, especially in places like Sparta, that they did human sacrifice, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that gods need that. I don't think that that's the right way to practice. And when you look at things like that, when the ancient Greeks did that, you realize how much of a separation there is between their society and our society, and therefore there's a separation between their morals and values and our morals and values. Now I want to talk about a little bit about our temple and why it is that it's so important to me to have this idea of inclusion. Chris and I have a temple called the Temple of the Greek Gods. It's just starting off. We have a handful of members, which is great, and I really appreciate the people who have joined our temple. And one of the things that we do in our temple is that we accept all people who have love for the gods of Greece, regardless of how they see them, regardless of what their tradition is, whether it be Hellenismos, Wicca, whatever it may be. We don't see the point in being exclusive or intolerant of others who share the love of our gods. Even if they believe differently or have different practices, it doesn't matter to us. What matters is that they have love for the gods. Now, I personally think that there's a lot of different motivations for these intolerant people that have started to pop up. And a lot of it, unfortunately, is things that we've heard of before in other religions. Here's what I came up with. Some of these practitioners have a sense of pride from their beliefs, and that by itself is fine, right? But pride to the extent that you feel better than others who don't believe or practice the way that you do, where your belief itself is what keeps up your self-esteem and not your love for the gods, I find that to be wrong, because I think you're putting your focus on the wrong thing. Along with that, what you're doing is creating negativity in your own community. I'd really like to see Hellenism be recognized by the mainstream society, and I don't think we're ever going to get there if we have all this divisiveness between Hellenismos practitioners and NeoHellenists and anybody who loves the Greek gods. I think that that's the wrong way to go about things. I know that some people have this purist attitude that they have to do things their way, and then that's where that pride comes from, is feeling that they've done it the right way. But I don't really think that that's where you should get your pride from. Your pride should be that you've discovered the Greek gods and you're on a path to relationship with them. It shouldn't be about how you do things. It should be your love for the gods. That's what should cause you pride. Sometimes there are different attitudes and beliefs within specific religious groups that completely differ. So somebody may have one view about something, another person might have the complete opposite view. And when that happens, a lot of times you have people that will feel that their belief is threatened, even though they feel it's the right way to do, because they can't come up with a logical argument to defend their faith. They then lash out at the person who has a different belief than them, instead of looking internally and understanding why it is that they believe the way they do. It's easier for them to lash out at the other group. And people need to look at why they're saying the things that they're saying, and why they feel the way they do, and understand, are your feelings coming from a place of logic, or are they really just coming from a place of emotion, where you feel like you don't want to associate yourself with people that you feel are lesser than you, or people that you feel threaten your idea of what it is to be a Hellenist? I'd like to address some of the arguments that these people have put out as to why they feel that their way is the only way. We don't worship the ancient Greeks, and we don't follow the same values and morals they do. If we did, we would consider women to be lesser than men. There's a big disconnect between their culture and their morals and ours. As much as you'd like to think that you're doing that, you're not. It was common among the poorer people of ancient Greece who couldn't afford the children that they had to practice infanticide and kill the daughters. And it's not a joke. I can cite sources for that. And that was considered to be okay in their culture. Today, we would consider that to be the largest offense.